Power Talks, Wise Words from Wise Women. In this series, I talk to women at the top of their game who share their experience, their stories, and their wisdom with you. And I am so honored to have one of these powerful wise women with me today, Dr. Eleanor Vincent. Eleanor is the Chief Operating Officer at Pathway Homes. She's a licensed psychotherapist, and she's a big advocate of mental health care. Thank you for being here today, Eleanor. Right? We've had some, I guess a crazy year would be an understatement in 2020 and the times now. And people are feeling ungrounded. People are feeling uncertain. You work in the mental health field. What are your tips or some thoughts about how people can stay grounded during this time?
Well, to say 2020 has been challenging would be an understatement. I think the first step is an acknowledgement that this is impacting all of us. And for those people who had existing mental health conditions, it's in a lot of ways compounding those issues. So,
Can I stop you there for a second? I want to stop you there for a second. When you say mental health conditions, right? Yeah. I think what we do is we get a stigma attached to that. So, for example, a mental health condition, anxiety. If somebody has anxiety, is that a mental health condition?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Yes. And so people then become afraid because we label it as, they have a mental health, because I'm feeling anxiety, I must have, there must be something wrong with me. So I just wanted to have you clarify that a little for us so that people aren't feeling, oh, I don't have a mental, it's not me. Right.
And you know what, and actually I appreciate you stopping me there because you're right. I think sometimes we've been hearing a lot, words do matter, right? Words matter. So this is a perfect example. And so when I talk about mental health conditions, I'm talking about an easy way to think about it is, people who may be dealing with things that are going on in everyday life in a manner that's not really helpful to them. So maybe the coping strategies that they're used to applying to a wide range of situations are no longer effective. Mm-hmm. Okay, and sometimes that can be manifested as anxiety. I mean, everything from feelings of mild uncertainty, fear, to full-blown panic attacks where people feel like they're having a heart attack and they're going to die. Or when you talk about depression, which is another one of, in our field, it's like a common cold of the mental health field because so many people can suffer from depression. So depression comes in very mild, just waking up and feeling kind of down, to people who are at the point where there's no hope. Life is a black hole.
Right.
And then we start talking about feeling like they need to take their own lives because they can't see an end to it. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. Those anxiety and depression seem to be the most common that you find. So when I talk about this year compounding some of those, what I mean by that is what's going on is affecting our sense of safety, right? So COVID-19, we had an election that went on that didn't seem to be ending. We have a lot of uncertainty, a lot of job loss. There's people dying. These are all the things that as a human being make you feel very unsafe. And so the way our brain functions is when your brain perceives a threat, it's perceived or real, your body reacts physiologically in one way. And so what you see are things like increases in high blood pressure. People might have increases in things like diabetes because you get blood sugar levels go up. Every time you're in that state of threat or perceived threat,
right?
Your body reacts as if you are. And so you have your body being flooded with all these hormones that are impacting your physical health and your mental health. So what is helpful for us to look at as we look at the year and what it's been is to help first and foremost to acknowledge it. We can't pretend it's not happening. I mean, and it's impacting different people in different ways. For from the people who have little kids that they have to now
Right.
work with at home and juggle a career, to people who've lost people who've died, right? Or people who are scared of catching something because they already have a medical high risk factor. So we have to, and as employers, as friends or family members, but especially as employers, we have to be really attuned to the fact that our employees, a lot of them are carrying this stuff around every single day. And here's the other thing. When we could go into work and you could separate being at work from being at home, you had a transition. You had time to transition between these two worlds. Okay, COVID-19,
right?
A reboot, right? Because you would drive to and from work. That's where some people would walk through things in their head, get some downtime. But now everything is coalesced in one place. Your workspace is now your home space. And if you feel under attack at work because you're not doing it at home, you're now under attack all the time. And so there's this perception that you can be safe anywhere. So what is vital from a mental health perspective is that we have to invest in creating little pockets of safety and tranquility. So some of those very basic things that we say, like, okay, get out of the house. You have to do that separation every now and then. So take what we call self-care breaks. You work for 8 hours. Don't sit there for 8 hours, right? Maybe every couple of hours, you want to take a 10, 15, walk around, go outside. Even if you live in an apartment, go downstairs. If it's sunny, get some sunshine on you. Vitamin D helps, right? You want to engage with other people. Isolation is a big problem right now for a lot of people. People are isolated. Even when they're working, they feel disconnected. It's not like being in the building where you could pop into somebody else's office. Now we're all doing what you and I are doing. We're talking, but you can't touch people, right? You can't just sit here and see everybody that's sitting around the table. So being able to find ways to connect. Other ways would be, we have to challenge our brains, which means every now and then, we have to engage in something different. We can't be on Facebook, social media, Instagram. We can't just be doing those things over and over. It's a great time to pick up a book if you haven't, right? It's a great time to watch a movie. We just need to give our brain some different things to focus on.
Stimulation, right? Yeah.
Stimulation, right? Because the brain is a muscle and it learns. So you have to up the ante every now and then. And I think finding something that gives us a sense of stability helps. So in psychotherapy, we have grounding exercises that we do. There's so many different ones that we do. But what is helpful is people find something that they can use as a grounding tool.
Okay, so Eleanor, I'm going to stop you. Can we do one of those grounding exercises here? Is there a simple one that we could share with people? So just something simple. If I'm feeling really out of sorts and I'm feeling ungrounded, is there
a couple of
simple that we could do to kind of reboot our brains in that moment?
The simplest one, this is the simplest one. You don't really have to do much. You know how people have the rosary? Some people have that rosary, the beads.
The beads, right.
That if you can find an item, it could be marbles. Some people use marbles. Some people use cards. Some people use coins. This becomes your tool. And that's the tool that every time you start feeling, you just do that. You hold on to it. You touch it. You feel it. Because what happens is this. Your brain, when you get scared, all 5 senses are activated. All 5 of them. And so in order to be grounded, you have to tap into those 5. Oh. So if I were to do an exercise with you, for example, it would be if you were feeling so like a balloon that's now lost its, moorings and floating
all around, right?
Floating all around. A good one, if you can do this, because this is better if somebody does it with you, but if you can remember to do this, you can say to yourself, okay, Janet, right now, I just want you to focus on one thing that you can see. Just look around, one thing you can see, okay? So focus on one thing that you can see. And then you go, okay, Janet, I want you to focus on one sound you can hear. Okay. And then the third one would be, okay, I want you now to touch something. Touch it and feel that texture. Keep that in mind. Okay. That's a grounding technique. Because while you're doing that, what happens?
Your brain gets distracted.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, I've got to figure out what I'm touching, right? So you focus
Exactly.
on your senses. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So when you're working with somebody, you would start with 3. You'd be like, okay, let's do 3 things you can see and hear and touch, and then go 2, 1. And that's a really standard grounding technique. I just did 1, but you could see already.
That's terrific. No, and see, it sounds so simple, but it works, because what you're doing is you're rebooting your brain in a way, right? It's great. No, thank you. And it's funny you mentioned, I have to say this, the beads. Yeah, I think you know that I grew up in Greece, right? And in Greece, they have this thing, it's called a koboloi. And what it is, it looks like a rosary bead, but it's not. They're called worry beads.
Yes.
And I think, they have them in other countries as well. But I just know in Greece, you see people walking around with these little worry beads, and they're constantly touching them. And I guess, that's a good technique. That's why they have so low stress, right? And it's one of the blue zones, because they got their little worry beads around.
Grounded. It's a grounding tech. That's a grounding.
I never knew that. I never knew that was actually a grounding technique. So thank you for sharing this helpful grounding, these 2 grounding techniques with us. Okay, so I know we only have a limited amount of time. A couple other things I wanted to ask you. What would you have as an inspirational quote that you think would offer inspiration to other women leaders, if you were going to pick a quote to give us?
Oh, wow, Janet. Well, there's this one that I like.
Okay.
And after I give it to you, maybe I can tell you why I like it.
Okay.
And I say that all the time. And it goes something like this. I am in the process of becoming, and what I am to become is yet to be revealed.
Wow. So say more about what you think that means and how that could help us.
Well, the reason why I like that quote and why it resonates with me is actually a few reasons. One of them is that it says to me that your condition is not permanent. So whatever is going on right now, you're feeling disempowered, you're feeling down, you're feeling downtrodden, taken advantage of, not recognized, is that you're in a process. This is a process, and that you can be a lot more than what is perceived right now. And nobody knows what that's going to be. That's the beauty of that. Nobody knows, and nobody can put you in a box. That's the other reason why I like that.
I love it.
Nobody, because sometimes we do. People love to put you in a box. For many years, I had to fight against this. Oh, you're a nurse. Oh, you. And I'm like, I used to be. That's just one facet of who I am as a person. But I'm not in that box. Don't put me in a box.
Right. That's why labels. I'm so against labels, right? It's
labels.
We always try to categorize. They fall into this category. I guess it helps. I don't know why we do that. That's a whole other episode.
Right?
But
yes. That says to me, you cannot put people in a box, right? Because and then the third reason I like it is because this idea of being lifelong learners. I consider myself to be a lifelong learner, that I'm always changed by the new things I learn. And that's why I love to travel. Every time I go somewhere, I learn something else, and I love it. So that's what I would offer, because it's a quote that I'm constantly.
Terrific. No, thank you. I love it. And so we're out of time, but I will ask you, do you have any other parting words of wisdom to offer to the women and to the leaders who are watching this today? Because men and women watch this, even though they're wise words from wise women. Any other parting words of wisdom that you would offer for women who are trying to balance everything in this crazy time right now.
Yeah. Well, I think what I would say is that we have a lot more power than we give ourselves credit for. There's a lot of power that we carry as human beings. And I think that sometimes the biggest challenge is we become our biggest challenge. I know that sounds cliched,
It's
but
true.
it works.
You're talking to a person who thinks that, right? I absolutely agree with you. Yes. It's not
Yeah.
cliche.
It is. And the other thing is that, sometimes I know I'm an optimist, and sometimes in my career, people have actually said to me, no, there's a thin line between being an optimist and delusional. And my retort has been, well, I choose to be an optimist. So I know I'm not delusional. I can be a realist and an optimist at the same time.
Right.
So I would say to people that you do not want other people to define you or put you in a box. And sometimes it's really hard, because sometimes you find yourself giving up little pieces of yourself to fit with the system, or to move ahead, or take advantage of those opportunities, or to be seen or to be heard. And sometimes you find yourself doing that. It's very easy to get lost in that. And this is one of the things that you're big on. It's staying true to yourself and who you are. One of the biggest takeaways that I got from doing work with you was to go back to that, which is, I've always been successful when I've stayed true to myself and the person that was created in my grandparents' home, with all the people that surrounded me and still continue to surround me. And when I stray from that, there's a problem. And so I would say to people, as hard as it is, that you have to find the thing that's core value and stay with that. And don't let other people get to define what it is you'll end up becoming, because it's a process and you're key to that process. It's not up to other people to determine that. They may have the power over you to make things happen or not, but they don't have power over the person that you can be.
Wise words from a wise woman. Thank you, Eleanor.
You're too kind, Janet. Thank you so much.
For your wise words today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you.